The grand chamber held its breath, save for the quiet murmur of translator devices. Ambassador Velter stood beneath the chamber's towering ceiling, his sapphire skin gleaming under harsh illumination. Circling him sat delegates from 47 worlds, all eyes compound, faceted, glowing fixed on him. The Galactic Council was deep into its third day of deliberations. One subject dominated: humanity. Velter's gaze lifted toward the elevated platform where the most influential figure presided. High Counselor Morak loomed, their arms folded with practiced stillness. His species, the Krex, had governed galactic affairs for a millennium. When Morak addressed the council, silence followed. "The human dilemma worsens daily," Velter began, his voice resonating throughout the chamber. 3 cycles ago, we encountered them. They had barely exited their native star system. We assumed, as with all emerging species, they'd be easy to steer. A ripple of murmurs followed. The Voric delegate tapped its chitinous claws. The serpentine Seth offered a low hiss. But humans defy the pattern. Velter pressed on. They colonize faster than projections. They befriend nearly everyone. Pirates raid their convoys only to become trade partners days later. We restrict their reach, and they circumvent every barrier. Counselor Zirathin, insectoid being towering above its peers, stood abruptly. There are one small race. 43 planets. We oversee thousands. Why are we wasting cycles? Because they're a threat, Velter countered. Not from brute strength, but because they empower others. Every contact ends in cooperation. Every alliance strengthens them. They've woven half the minor systems around them into a mutual support web. High Counselor Morak leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "What course do you recommend?" Velter took a breath. "We offer the usual terms, same terms we've always extended to defiant civilizations. Submission to our guidance, or the lesson that compelled 47 species to unify rather than resist." A surge of whispers rolled across the assembly. Some seemed eager, others apprehensive. Humans had never shown a taste for war. Their record favored diplomacy, commerce, and alliances. "Summon their envoy," Morak ordered. Massive doors groaned open at the hall's far end. Ambassador Sarakan entered, heels clicking on polished stone. She was modest in stature, dwarfed by most council members. She lacked claws, lacked extra limbs, no armored hide, no natural weaponry. She appeared delicate, yet he had studied humans for 3 years and learned never to trust appearances. So when Sarah Chen walked to the center of the chamber, he wasn't fooled by her calm. She didn't bow. She showed no fear. She simply waited. "Ambassador Chen," Morak said, "the council has made its decision regarding your kind." "I'm listening," Sarah replied. Velter moved forward. "Human expansion will cease. No further colonization beyond your current 43 systems. You will permit council-appointed supervisors to monitor your technological progress. You will welcome our cultural advisors to teach your people acceptable interstellar conduct." Sarah stood motionless, her expression unreadable. "You have 30 standard days to comply," Velter continued. "Your leadership must officially cede oversight of human affairs to this council. This is not a suggestion. This is mandatory. And if we say no," Sarah asked. The words lingered in the air like a tremor. Some counselors stirred uncomfortably. Most species never dared ask that. They accepted or bargained, but rarely resisted. High Counselor Morak rose with deliberate grace. His forearms extended a Krex gesture of finality. "Then we will remind you," he said, "why 47 civilizations chose unity over war. Our fleets can shadow 1,000 skies. Our weapons can shatter continents. Our legions have never tasted defeat." Sarah Chen gave a single nod. "I see, do you?" Morak pressed. "You truly grasp what stands before you? The combined firepower of civilizations far beyond your comprehension. Technology you've yet to dream of. Armies that have maintained galactic order for 10 centuries. Sarah's voice was quiet but firm. "I understand that you're issuing a threat," she said. "I understand you want to mold us into something we're not because we unsettle you. I understand you believe power gives you the right to decide what's acceptable." A wave of angry noise surged through the hall. Several delegates rose to their feet. Shouting voices erupted in dozens of alien tongues. The translators strained. To keep up, Morok raised one hand order returned instantly. Choose your next words with care, human. You address the rulers of the galaxy. Sarah swept her gaze across the room, locking eyes with beings who could annihilate her world with a single order. Her reply was calm, unshaken. Thank you for the 30-day notice, she said. That's more warning than most bullies give. They're targets. Stunned silence followed. No one had ever dared call the Galactic Council bullies to their face. I request immediate return transport to Earth, she continued. My government will need time to fully consider your generous terms. Velter studied her carefully. Something was off. Humans were supposed to be impulsive, easily frightened. But Sarah Chen stood like a predator who'd just been told where the herd was hiding. Granted, Morok replied after a tense pause. 30 days, Ambassador. It's not a day more. Sarah gave a shallow bow, not submissive, just courteous. Understood, High Counselor will be ready. She turned and walked steadily toward the grand exit. Every footfall echoed through the chamber. No one spoke as the doors closed behind. Her Velter shivered. In 3 years of studying humanity, he'd learned their odd idioms for every occasion. One surface now. Be careful what you wish for.
You're it, Counselor.
Counselor Zareth clicked her claws with satisfaction. That went surprisingly well. She seemed to grasp her position. Yes, Morok said. The humans will come around. Eventually they all do. Fear speaks to everyone. But Velter remained unconvinced. There had been something in Sarah Chen's final words. We'll be ready. It wasn't fear. It wasn't defeat. It looked disturbingly like ... anticipation. High Counselor Morok adjourned the session. Representatives rose and began departing, speaking of their easy triumph. Velter lingered. He pulled up his display and reopened all the psychological profiles the Council had compiled on humans. He reread every note. Humans hated bullies. They had a tendency to protect the defenseless, often at great cost. They formed alliances where others saw only division. When threatened, they did something rare. They united. Velter slowly powered down the display. The Council had just made a monumental error. They believed 30 days would frighten humanity. Instead, they had granted them 30 days, to become furious. As Velter exited the chamber, sphinal human saying echoed in his mind, You have no idea what you've just started. They had awakened a sleeping giant. And the giant was beginning to stir. 18 hours after leaving the council chamber, Sarah Chen's vessel touched down on Earth. She had spent the journey compiling her report, but her mind kept circling back to High Counselor Morok's threats. 47 civilizations, fleets to eclipse suns, weapons capable of cracking entire planets. Her transport took her straight to Geneva, to the fortified command center, buried beneath the city humanity's seat of governance. By the time she arrived, the Situation Room was full. President Martinez sat at the head of the table, surrounded by top generals, researchers, and senior diplomats. Sarah, he said as she entered. Report. She sat, activating the central hologram. A three-dimensional projection of the council chamber appeared, showing its vast scale and alien members. She played the recording in full, letting everyone see what was said. When it ended, silence lingered. General Harrison Head, of Earth's Defense Command, broke it first. 47 civilizations. Do we know what kind of force that really means? Admiral Park opened a new display. Our projections estimate over 50,000 vessels, ranging from interceptors to planet destroyers. She paused. We have considerably fewer. The display shifted again, showing humanity's total space strength. 43 colonies. 16 deep space installations. A fleet of just 800 ships, mostly built for science or cargo, not war. On paper, we're hopelessly outgunned, Harrison muttered. Dr. Elizabeth Vasquez, head of Xena Relations, leaned in, yet they chose to threaten us directly. In 3 years of encounters, she continued, We've watched dozens of species submit without protest. The Altarians surrendered their quantum relay tech without discussion. The Centauran League disbanded. After a single warning, President Martinez narrowed his eyes. "Your point, Doctor?" "Furious," she answered. "They just don't understand why yet." Foreign Minister Jiang pulled up diplomatic archives. "We've established relations with 86 species since first contact. 71 are outside the Council's influence. The Council labels them minor civilizations." "Minor," Sarah echoed. "That's what they call our allies. Species too small to have a voice." Martinez looked at Jiang. "How many of those 71 would stand with us?" Jiang hesitated. "Unknown. The Council punishes those who oppose them. Most would be too frightened to openly align with us." General Harrison studied the strategic display. "Even if every non-Council species joined our side, we'd still be outmatched 10-1. Our tech is solid, but it's not godlike." Discussion dragged on for hours. Some advocated accepting the Council's demands. Others pushed for diplomacy, perhaps negotiating more favorable terms. A few even proposed that humanity vanish into the void between stars, becoming nomads rather than bow. But Sarah Chen's mind was elsewhere. "We're looking at this the wrong way," she said at last. The room went still. "We're thinking like the Council. Fleet versus fleet. Weapon versus weapon. Power against power." "What other option is there?" Admiral Park asked. "People," Sarah said. "The Council maintains control by instilling fear. For a millennium, they've kept peace by ensuring no one dares resist. But what happens when someone finally does?" Dr. Vasquez slowly nodded. "The entire structure depends on the illusion that they're invincible." "Exactly," Sarah said. "They gave us 30 days expecting us to tremble, to despair. They believe we'll see how impossible the odds are and surrender." President Martinez leaned back in her chair. "So what do you propose we do instead?" Sarah rose and walked toward the central display. With emotion, she changed it. Gone were ships and assets instead. A network of human colonies appeared, lines branching to dozens of alien civilizations. "Do what we've always done," she said. "We build relationships." "Sarah," General Harrison said gently, "friendship won't stop 50,000 warships." "Are you sure?" Sarah replied. "The Council governs through fear, but fear only works when people feel isolated. What happens when they realize what happens when they realize they're not alone?" Foreign Minister Jiang caught on first. "You want to rally the minor civilizations." "Not to fight," Sarah clarified. "To resist. To stand. To prove the Council's strength relies entirely on fear and silence." Admiral Park looked skeptical. "Even if that worked, building such a coalition would take years." "We have 30 days. We don't need years," Sarah replied. "We just need to send a message not only to the Council, but to every species in the stars. To every world that's bowed in submission, every people told they didn't matter." President Martinez was quiet for a long time, and softly she asked, "What kind of message?" Sarah smiled, and for the first time since she'd returned from the Council, she looked truly hopeful. "The kind we specialize in. The kind that says bullies can be defied, that courage is contagious, and no one has to stand alone." Now the room stirred. People began to understand. This wasn't military doctrine. This wasn't politics. This was something far more subversive to the Council. Hope. General Harrison brought up maps of human vessels across space. "Our exploration ships are already in contact with dozens of minor species. We could get word out within days, not just messages," Sarah said. "Personal visits, face-to-face talks. The Council rules by staying distant. We show up." Dr. Vasquez was already scribbling notes. "We'll have to tread carefully. One wrong move, and some species will report us out of fear." "Then we don't ask them to fight," Sarah said. "We ask them to remember. Remember what they once hoped for, before the Council taught them to stop hoping." Stood, all in favor of Sarah's approach. Every hand rose. "Then it's settled," the president said. "We have 30 days to remind the galaxy what freedom feels like." By nightfall, orders spread to every human ship outpost and settlement. The directive was simple. Speak to everyone. Visit every species. Share the Council's ultimatum, but more importantly, share humanity's answer. Captain Rodriguez of the exploratory vessel Endeavour was first to respond. His crew had made contact with the Catharide Cathari homeworld, long isolated, had once been forced to abandon half its colonies after defying Council-imposed expansion limits. They remember Captain Rodriguez's message read. They remember wanting to explore, remember dreaming dreams the Council said were too large. And they remember thinking they were alone. Similar reports poured in. The Salone. Stripped of their FTL communications tech. The Vex, whose trade empire had been boxed in to keep them poor. The Drekta, whose military was dissolved after too many unapproved victories. Dozens of species, each with a different name, but the same story. Told resistance was futile. Told submission was survival. Told they stood alone. But now, they weren't alone anymore. On the 5th day of humanity's 30-day countdown, something historic occurred. A Cathari ship entered human space, requesting clearance to dock at Mars Station. It was the first time in 50 years they had left their restricted zone without Council approval. The captain's message was simple. We heard you said no to the Council. We wanted to see what that looked like. By day 10, 12 alien ships orbited human worlds. By day 15, the number had grown to 28. They weren't soldiers. They weren't there to fight. They came as witnesses. Witnesses who had spent decades believing defiance was impossible. The Council took notice. Emergency summits were convened. Envoys were dispatched, demanding explanations. But for the first time in a millennium, the minor civilizations offered something other than blind obedience. They said, "We're thinking about it." 3 words that changed everything, because thinking implied choice, and choice implied freedom. A concept the Council had spent centuries erasing. On day 28, Sarah Chen stood aboard Luna Station's observation deck, staring at what no one would have imagined a month ago. Ships from 43 species floated in formation around Earth, not as attackers, not as enemies, but as companions. They hadn't come to wage war. They'd come to prove something bigger, that the Council could be told no. And soon the whole galaxy would see what happened when someone finally did. The change began on day 1, and it never slowed. From her office window, Sarah watched another cargo freighter roar into the sky en route to Mars shipyards. The 20th launch that morning, and it wasn't even noon. Across the colonies, humanity's 43 worlds had become a single enormous engine. On Earth, car factories now built starship parts. On Mars, mining operations worked non-stop. On Europa, underwater homes had become weapons labs. But the real transformation wasn't in metal, it was in the people. General Harrison had been wrong about one thing. Humans did possess miracle-level technology. They just hadn't recognized it. The miracle wasn't circuitry or propulsion or plasma. The miracle was unity. The miracle was urgency. Captain? Marcus Rodriguez stood on the Endeavour's bridge, watching his crew install their 20th weapon system of the week. A ship once designed for peace, now bristled with railguns, missile arrays, and new weapons Dr. Vasquez's team had dreamed. Up in 72 hours, Captain, his weapons officer said.